Zach Laws of Gold Derby here with Olivia Wilde, who made her directorial debut with Booksmart, one of the sleeper hits of this summer movie season. Olivia, you know, this is a version of you that we haven't seen before artistically. Was it frightening to make this leap behind the camera for this?
I think appropriately frightening. Frightening enough to give me the adrenaline and the energy needed to get it done. I had been wanting to do this for a really long time, and I had been preparing by directing some music videos, a short film, and mostly just recognizing that I was my happiest on set as a director. It felt very right. I love every element of the process, from prep through post. I really enjoy the collaborative aspect of it, so while it was intimidating, I just had so much fun, and I really felt lucky to be able to do it, that kind of blasted away all my nerves.
So when you read this script, what about it made you want to, why choose this as your debut?
Yeah, well, in some ways, I had been looking for something in this realm because I wanted to have my first film be a kind of an homage of sorts to the films that made me want to be in this business, the films that made me want to make movies. That is Ferris Bueller's Day Off, that is Breakfast Club, 16 Candles, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. These are movies that I watched over and over and over, and I wanted to be close to them. And as a young woman, that seemed to me to mean that I should act. That is what actors do. Women are sort of given the example of your participation in movies is as an actress. And I didn't think, should I be a DP? Should I be a director? Should I be a production designer? For me, it really brought me to acting in a way that I'm very grateful for. I do feel at this point that I was kind of heading here all along, and Booksmart came to me as a concept that was looking for a reinvention. And I loved the idea of telling a story of two really smart women who loved each other deeply, who respected each other, and who weren't trying to assimilate, but had to go on this journey to kind of understand themselves. And I just knew, that it was the story that I wanted to tell for personal reasons, and because I felt that this generation deserved a story that reflected how kick-ass they are.
Right, you mentioned reinvention, and that's what's so fascinating and great about this movie is that, it's got all the trappings of, your typical teen comedy, but it's got so much heart in it as well. Talk about subverting those conventions. Was it difficult to tell that line?
The great thing about the kind of intelligence of film goers now is that there is a language that is, we have such a shorthand because of the amount of movies we've all grown up with at this point, that when it comes to something like a story about high school, you can skip several steps. You can have a trope that they will very quickly identify as one thing and then completely subvert it in a way that is ultimately satisfying because they very quickly connect the dots. And that is fun to take advantage of. I really enjoyed presenting the concept of two girls in high school who are unpopular, knowing people would assume their quest would be to become popular and that everyone else must be cruel, and then taking people on a journey that allows them to realize that's not in fact what's going on, and those who are kind of feeling like outsiders are actually the ones excluding everyone else. I just thought this is fun because audiences are so smart and so experienced in this realm that we can move at a very brisk pace, and we can tell a lot of story in a short amount of time.
So let me ask you, you've been an actress for a long time. You've worked with a lot of really great directors.
Yeah.
People like Spike Jonze, Clint Eastwood coming up.
Yeah.
All that time when you were on set, were you making mental notes about
yes,
this is how I want to work, this is how I not want to work?
100%. I was effectively shadowing everyone I worked for, and that was my way of kind of attending a de facto film school. Because for years I thought I can't direct because I haven't been to film school, and I was sort of insecure about that lack of real education. I'd studied acting, not filmmaking, and yet I realized this is my chance to study the greats, shadow them, pay attention, and ask 100,000 questions, which is what I've always done. And I don't like leaving set. I don't go back to my trailer. I sit by the monitor. I watch. And all of my bosses over the years were so patient and generous with their advice. Spike Jonze was the one who said, go direct some music videos. It's the greatest way to cut your teeth. You really learn about telling a story visually and efficiently. Mark Romanek also was a great kind of mentor in that he came and directed an episode of Vinyl when we were making that show, and he also kind of shoved me in that direction. And I really appreciate the people who dared me to just go and do it. So I think for many directors, it's hard to get over that hump of just going and making something, because you just feel like, what if it's not good enough? And it's like, you just have to start making. So I learned I learned valuable lessons from many of them, and of course I learned valuable lessons from the people who weren't great examples, who weren't the best communicators, and weren't confident as directors. And so I thought, like, okay, cautionary tales everywhere.
Well, I mean, how did you, having been an actress for so long and observed all these things, I mean, being directed by people, then what is your approach to directing Beanie Feldstein and Caitlin Bieber and all the other actors?
Well, I'm of the school that every actor should be communicated with differently based on their experience and their personality, but truly their training. They speak different languages. So when you are directing someone like Beanie, who is trained in theater and she can truly do anything, but she speaks a very specific language in terms of her process. And it was that part of the fun of directing is like switching your language over to that director's experience, that actor's experience, and saying, this is how I think I can help you come to this place of understanding. I can get on the same page as you by speaking your language, which is different than that of Caitlin's, of Victoria Ruesca, who was an actress who had actually never acted before in her life. She's a pro skateboarder who was playing the role of Ryan in our film. And I love the experience of directing non-actors, because they're just completely open and kind of willing to just sort of evolve into the space without any kind of, hang-ups that get in their own way. It's for me, what's clear is that that fearlessness is the most valuable attribute of any actor. And when people are incredibly experienced but guarded, that's actually much more difficult. So I loved, taking the lessons I had learned as an actress myself. How do I like to be spoken to? What's the most effective way a director can communicate with me to yield the best performance? And kind of turning that outward and empathizing deeply, but not expecting them each to work the same way I do as an actor.
Right.
That's the fun, saying I sense you're a little different. You need a little more structure, you need to be set free, you need to be left alone, I think that's part of the fun.
I guess it helps, having acted with so many different people as well.
Yes.
You get that kind of this is how this person works, and this is
completely. Yes, and knowing that, by asking them to really work very hard, very quickly. We had 26 days. We could, we did sometimes 7 pages a day. It was very useful that I had worked on television for many years, so I count that as really important training for this. I don't understand the concept of sitting down on set. When you are setting up for one shot, you're rehearsing the next. So I had cut my teeth in a kind of a high stakes, very fast paced world, and that prepared me. But it also allowed me to empathize with the actors who were being given a tremendous amount of dialogue, some of it in Mandarin. And I stole a rule from Scorsese, who has a no sides on set rule, and I implemented that, mostly because we just didn't have time for anyone to not be off book. But these actors didn't even flinch. They were like, great, cool, off book, no problem. Maybe privately they were freaking out, but I loved that. I think by raising the standards and daring people to do something difficult, it actually inspires them to be better and to have more fun. So that was part of it.
How do you keep your cool in situations when you've got 26 days and it's your first feature film, and you've got all this complicated stuff going on?
I just knew what was possible. I knew that we were, I felt very confident that we could pull it off. I felt we had assembled an incredible team. I had an extraordinary AD named Scott Robertson, who's literally worked with, he's worked with Inarritu. He did The Revenant. In fact, anytime things were slightly stressful, I'd be like, but it's not The Revenant.
You don't have to worry about the bear.
There's no bear. And it's very warm. But I think that was of course, half the battle, putting together this incredible team. I had an extraordinary DP, Jason McCormick, who really embraced the idea of elevating what people expect from teen comedies and trying something more stylistic and a little bit more bold than people expected from me, certainly. I thought, I really want to go for it. I may only have one chance at this. Yes.
I saw the music video influence in that.
Yeah,
That kind
yeah.
of, the way that the pacing goes and the visual
Yes.
style of it, you know.
Yeah, and I enjoy that. I mean, a lot of my favorite filmmakers, from Paul Thomas Anderson to Tarantino, really embrace kind of an energy in their filmmaking that it is a kind of a driving, kind of musical force that is what I like to watch and definitely what I like to make.
You mentioned how this was reflective of this generation. And one of the most revolutionary things in it is that you have a character who is a member of the LGBTQ community. And, you know, the movie is not centered on the fact that
Right.
she's a lesbian. You
Yeah.
know, it's like, it's a part of her character.
Yes,
you
yeah,
know.
exactly. I wanted to try to have a conversation that took place after the stage of coming out. What is the step after that? You know, there are so many valuable, wonderful stories out there about the coming out process or coming to terms with one's own sexuality and how that affects their relationships. And I thought, what's the stage after that? What's the goal? Is that it's a non-issue in many ways. And I really enjoyed being able to portray a friendship between two characters, one queer, one straight, that's not an issue within their relationship at all. It's merely one element of their personality. This is who she likes, this is who she likes, and it's not something we needed to focus on in a way that I think people are kind of primed to expect. And I often find that, you know, young people in this Generation Z, they think in a way that rejects the paradigm. They don't want labels. We are dinosaurs who expect everyone to sort of pick a lane, and I believe that the future is no lanes. It is just a little bit more evolved, and I wanted the film to inch closer to that place.
Yeah, I mean, you deal with young love and heartbreak and all those things in
Yeah.
very kind of tender ways, you know.
Yeah, and that is universal. That's something, you know, I wanted to tap into our shared adolescent trauma that exists because of the high stakes experience of young love and self-discovery, but not to assign it to any specific, you know, sexuality, or it was just about what happens when you discover yourself and your own gut instincts that drive you towards someone or away from someone. And that's universal, and I think that's what makes it relatable to people who are not teenage girls, which was the goal. I didn't want to make a movie just for teenage girls. I wanted to make a movie all of us could relate to, because everyone has felt like an outsider. Everyone has failed to see others, and that's the important part of this.
So before I let you go, I mean, now that you've got your first movie directed,
Yeah.
What are you working on next?
Yes.
And is there a story that you're just dying to tell, that you feel
Luckily,
you can direct?
those two things are coinciding right now, which is amazing. I mean, my goal with making my first film was that I would have a chance to make another one, right? Always, like, let me keep going. And this next one is called Don't Worry, Darling, and it's a thriller. I love thrillers. This one has a sort of Rosemary's Baby vibe to it, if I do my job right. And it's one that I'll also be acting in, which is totally terrifying. But kind of the next leap of faith I'm ready to take. And I think it is the story that, above all others, the one that I'm really itching to tell right now. It's very timely, and it's personal, and I'm excited that I get to do it.
Yeah. Well, I certainly look forward to seeing that. Olivia Wilde, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thanks to all of you at home for watching. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button below, and make sure you visit us at goldderby.com for all the latest Oscar news.